Aylin hadn't slept in 3 days. The dreams had started the moment the signals came through. Dreams of stars screaming, of timelines unraveling like thread from a dying star's core. She pressed her palm against the quantum display in her laboratory, watching the impossible data stream cascade through the holographic interface, while her reflection stared back, hollow-eyed and haunted. The packets arrived without origin codes, without transmission signatures, without any identifiable source across the electromagnetic spectrum. Each contained star maps that depicted constellations existing billions of years before stellar nucleosynthesis should have been possible. But it was the corrupted audio that made her hands shake as she isolated the waveforms from the cosmic microwave background radiation. The rhythmic pulse embedded within the universe's oldest light carried a frequency that predated the Big Bang by an impossible margin. A heartbeat older than existence itself. "Marcus, I need you to see this immediately," she whispered into the quantum-entangled transmitter, her voice cracking with exhaustion and something deeper, a terror she couldn't name. Dr. Marcus Chen materialized through the holographic projector within minutes, his expression shifting from concern to horror as Aylin displayed her findings. "The mathematics are flawless, but they describe reality as fundamentally wrong," Aylin finished, her words barely audible above the laboratory's humming processors. "Look deeper." She manipulated the visualization to reveal the pattern she had discovered after weeks of sleepless analysis. The pulse wasn't random. It was structured, deliberate, and it had been woven into the fabric of space-time since before existence began. Marcus stumbled backward. "You're suggesting that something was here before the universe itself." "Not suggesting. Proving." Aylin pulled up classified research from the Kepler Institute's post-Einsteinian physics division. "I've contacted Dr. Yuki Tanaka and Professor Elena Volkov. They've agreed to join us aboard the Orion's Dagger." The research vessel departed from Luna Station 48 hours later, its experimental fold space engines propelling them toward the edge of the observable universe. Aylin stood in the command center, watching familiar stars stretch into impossible geometries as they approached the coordinates embedded within the mysterious transmissions. Dr. Tanaka monitored the gravitational sensors while Professor Volkov analyzed quantum field fluctuations. "We're approaching something that defies every model we have," Tanaka reported, her voice tight with professional dread. "Define defies," Aylin demanded, though dread pooled in her stomach like ice water. "It's not destroying atoms," Tanaka whispered. "It's erasing the idea of atoms." The Orion's Dagger shuddered as they crossed the event horizon of something that had no name in any language. Through the observation deck's reinforced viewing ports, Aylin watched space itself begin to unravel. Stars didn't simply disappear, they ceased to have ever existed, leaving behind gaps in causality that made her mind struggle to process what she was witnessing. "Captain, we need to maintain minimum safe distance," Professor Volkov warned, but her words seemed to echo strangely, as if the meaning behind them was being gradually drained away. Marcus suddenly gripped the navigation console, his eyes wide with confusion. "I remember being a child on Titan, but I also remember never being born. My mother's face. She has 3 different faces. How is that possible?" Aylin felt the first tendrils of the anomaly's influence touching her consciousness. She gripped the console. Her hands were hers, but younger. Her sleeves were a uniform from a program she never joined. She felt herself flicker. Mother, scientist, dead child, no one. The horror wasn't in the anomaly. It was in not knowing which version was real. "The gravitational distortion is affecting temporal causality," she managed to say, forcing herself to focus on the scientific instruments, even as her sense of personal identity began to fragment. We're experiencing parallel probability cascades. Dr. Tanaka's hands shook as she attempted to record their observations. My instruments show we're simultaneously approaching the anomaly, fleeing from it, and have never encountered it. I can taste colors that don't exist. I remember a wedding that never happened to someone I've never met. The rhythmic pulse that Aylin had first detected in the cosmic microwave background now resonated through the ship's hull, a heartbeat that seemed to emanate from the fundamental structure of reality itself. As the frequency intensified, she began to understand its true nature with a clarity that made her soul recoil. "It's not a signal," she whispered, her voice carrying across the command center, despite the growing chaos of overlapping timelines. "It's a digestive rhythm." Professor Volkov turned toward her, though her face flickered between different ages, different expressions, different versions of herself. "What do you mean?" "The pulse we detected, it's the sound of something feeding, something that has been consuming reality since before the Big Bang, mistaken by us for the origin of existence itself." Aylin manipulated the quantum display with trembling fingers, revealing the pattern she had finally decoded. Khaganth, that's the name embedded in the data packets. An ancient hunger that dreams existence into being so it can devour meaning itself. The Orion's dagger groaned as space-time continued to collapse around them. Through the observation ports, Aylin could see the anomaly's true form beginning to manifest. Not a black hole or gravitational singularity, but something far worse. A consciousness older than causality, feeding on the very concept of existence. Marcus approached her, though she couldn't be certain it was still Marcus, or merely a probability shadow of someone who might have been Marcus in a timeline that had never occurred. "The ship's quantum drives are caught in the reality spiral. We can't escape." Aylin stared at the entity that had been mistaken for the universe's beginning, feeling the weight of impossible choice crushing down upon her. She could attempt to sever the cosmic heartbeat, to end the illusion of reality and awaken true oblivion. But there was another option, one that terrified her more than annihilation. "We communicate," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Aylin, no," Marcus warned. "If that thing truly understands us back, then we face that consequence." She activated the ship's most powerful transmission array, her hands steady despite the cosmic horror unfolding around them. Sometimes the only way forward is through absolute terror. She directed every available erg of energy toward the entity, composing a message that contained no words, no mathematics, no conventional information, only pure conceptual content, meaning distilled to its essence. "We understand what you are," her transmission conveyed. "We recognize the illusion of reality you have created to sustain yourself." The response came not as audio or data, but as direct knowledge flooding her consciousness, and with it a loneliness so vast it threatened to tear her mind apart. Khaganth was indeed ancient beyond comprehension, a being that existed in the spaces between existence, feeding on the meaning that sentient creatures imposed upon chaos. It had dreamed the universe into being as a vast feeding ground, but eons of consumption had left it desperately, cosmically alone. "You are the first to perceive the truth." The entity's communication bypassed language entirely, carrying with it the weight of endless solitude, the first to offer understanding rather than mere existence to be devoured. Aylin felt herself fragmenting under the intensity of that ancient loneliness. But she held firm. "We don't end the illusion, and we don't simply feed it," she projected back. "We teach it to create meaning rather than consume it." For a moment that lasted eternity, the entity's attention focused upon her with an intensity that threatened to unmake her entirely. She felt it considering her proposal, tasting the concept like something unprecedented and strange. Then the rhythmic pulse began to change, its consumption pattern shifting towards something that had never existed before. Around the Orion's dagger, the collapsing reality spiral began to stabilize as Khaganth experimented with creation rather than destruction. Aylin watched through the observation ports as new forms of existence began to manifest, not mere matter and energy, but entirely novel categories of being that transcended conventional physics. The entity was learning to nurture meaning rather than devour it, to cultivate consciousness rather than feed upon it. "We're not returning to the universe we knew," she told her crew as their alternate lifetimes began to coalesce into a single coherent timeline. "We're helping to birth something entirely new." The Orion's dagger rode the expanding wave of transformed reality back toward the galaxy, carrying with it the knowledge that existence itself had fundamentally changed. As they left the anomaly behind, stars bloomed in unnatural colors, violet suns, golden comets looping infinity symbols across the void, crystalline planets that sang with frequencies of pure joy. A new universe was writing itself, one thought at a time. Aylin Rourke had faced the hunger behind all existence and taught it to love instead of feed. The cosmos would never be the same, but perhaps, she thought as she watched impossible constellations paint themselves across the darkness, that was exactly what reality needed. Not an end to the illusion, but a transformation of its very purpose.